Ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
U.S. beef exports make a big contribution to the bottom line for cattlemen and women. Today, we'll have the inside story on beef exports as we visit the U.S. Meat Export Federation headquarters right here in Denver.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen with host Kevin Oxner.
Hello, I'm Kevin Oxner. Welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen and a special edition focused on U.S. beef exports. Today, we're in the Denver headquarters of the U.S. Meat Export Federation, known as USMEF. Founded in 1976, this organization has helped to build U.S. beef exports to record levels with a skilled network of international staff and 18 offices in countries around the world. While the National Cattlemen's Beef Association works to fight for trade agreements and favorable trade policy, the USMEF has boots on the ground in Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and more, with activities in more than 80 countries in all. We're here in the USMEF Denver headquarters, but let's begin with a quick trip outside our borders to get a taste of how U.S. beef export markets are developed. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter has more in this report.
Visit a supermarket in Japan, Korea, or in any number of countries and you'll likely find high-quality U.S. beef offered for sale. 40 years ago, before the U.S. Meat Export Federation existed, those sales typically did not happen. But now they're a key part of the market for U.S. beef.
USMEF serves a huge importance to the beef industry, all the way from the producer at the ranch level through the processor at the packing plant. In terms of being our go-to organization for overseas intelligence and market promotions, it just comes back to help ranchers and farmers and the beef industry in the form of higher prices for our international markets and the products we sell overseas.
With funding from producer checkoff dollars and the USDA, USMEF has staff working around the world, and you'll find they all have two things in common. They know their markets, and they're dedicated to helping the U.S. industry grow demand for its products.
USMEF is critical to us getting a foot in the door in a lot of these countries. We have sales offices in many countries today, but those all came at the help of USMEF, getting our foot in the door, getting to know the marketplace that we're walking into, getting to know who the players are, both in the industry as well as in the governments of those countries.
One of the greatest benefits of being a U.S. Meat Export Federation member is that Certified Angus Beef receives many trade leads directly from their foreign directors in all the markets that USMEF services.
One of the strengths of USMEF has been the ability to adapt by creating new strategies to reach global consumers, such as developing relationships with bloggers who now have a vast growing audience in markets such as Korea and Japan.
We're doing this because blogger is becoming a huge thing in Japan right now. And by having these bloggers talk about American beef on their blogs, we hope to achieve better understanding on American beef.
The results are clear. In 2014, overall U.S. beef exports reached a record value of over $7 billion, up 16% from the previous year.
We're seeing phenomenal growth in export markets. I'm sure most producers are aware of that right now, and that's because it is a great place for us to grow as an industry.
I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Joining me now to talk more about beef export market development is Phil Singh, the president and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation, and Forrest Roberts, the CEO of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Phil, I know your experience in the international market extends well beyond even before we had access to the Japanese market. Tell folks how dramatically we've seen changes in this export market in your tenure.
Well, it's been dramatic. When we first started exporting product in the beginning, Osaka was basically in Japan was the primary target area. It was one city at one point in time, and that market was less than 36,000 metric tons. And today, when you take a look at the fact we're exporting $7.1 billion worth of product overseas, there's been tremendous growth over the course of the last 35 years.
And Forrest, obviously we as NCBA members are very appreciative of the dollars that adds to cattle value in the United States. Tell us a little bit about the relationship that exists between NCBA and USMEF.
Well, it's a relationship that's focused primarily around how we enhance consumer confidence in beef all around the world. And when we do it right, we have a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of coordination to make sure that once we are able to gain access to a key market like Japan, we've got the in-country promotion dollars, as both of us are very proud contractors to the Beef Checkoff program. We're able to leverage those dollars on behalf of producers in a most effective way. So I kind of liken it to the analogy, our collaboration enables us to have 1 + 1 perhaps equal 3 when we get it right.
Well, tell us more about how the work complements, how the work of both organizations complement each other for us.
Well, when you look at the massive amount of in-country intelligence that the U.S. Meat Export Federation team brings to the discussion, that intelligence is incredible in terms of our ability to use that intelligence with our team in Washington, D.C. to work together and collaborate on how we remove first these market access barriers that have been there for years and for decades, and they change based off of political dynamics and changes within the marketplace. But that in-country intelligence, we think, allows us to have that collaborative relationship when we look at our efforts of how we engage the U.S. government, whether that be at USDA or at the U.S. Trade Representative's office in Washington, D.C.
And Phil, what would you add?
Well, I think that really when you take a look at the partnership, you know, the NCBA was the founder of the U.S. Meat Export Federation, along with the 4 other major groups in the industry. And when you take a look at the work that we do together, it's very important that we have the arm of the NCBA in Washington. We really relish the idea of sending and generating the information from these markets to the NCBA, because it's important that people on the Hill understand exactly what's going on. I would also say there's a tremendous amount of effort that we have in basically when we look at these markets, of defending these markets, because there's a lot of onslaughts that we have from our competition, etc. And so there's a tremendous amount of work not only in the promotion area, but just actually defending our industry and the integrity of our production processes.
So I'd like to talk just a little bit more about some of the strategies that you're employing. The markets that you're working on very diverse, from Canada to Korea. Help me understand some of the strategies you all are.
Well, we take a look at a total quality marketing approach, and basically what we do is we keep breaking markets down. So we work basically coming in with importers, then we work into the food service area, the retail area, and frankly our work really basically starts out talking about development. We work basically in market development, and as you work in these markets, there's always competition. There's over 20 competitors trying to deal in Japan or Korea or these other markets. So you develop a market, and then you have to displace your competition because there's competition in the market. Sure. So we work very hard at displacement, and the third thing is defending the market. But we also employ a total quality animal concept. So we look at everything from the variety meats to the muscle meats to promote international. And as Forrest says, that's that $300 a head that's the export dividend today that we have in the export marketplace.
We've seen exports rise tremendously. You mentioned it early on. We've broken records the last couple of years. I'd be interested from you all's perspective, can we anticipate that continued kind of record-breaking growth, and what challenges do you see on the horizon?
You know, that's one of the things that is what Phil and I and our teams talk about weekly. And to the reference that Phil made about our partnership, it's critical that we collaborate together to define where are those barriers. And then as we work together to remove them, I'll give you a few that are really top of mind in our discussions today. If we think about our trading partners to the north and south, with Canada and Mexico, you know, two very key markets, addressing country of origin labeling once and for all is a very key thing to avoid that proverbial trade barrier of retaliation that we think could come in the year ahead. But when you look at today, what is one of the most significant things, and Phil has got a lot of experience from his time in living in Japan, but if we look at what's in front of Congress today with TPA, or Trade Promotion Authority, having Congress move that forward to where when a trade agreement like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, moves forward, we have an ability for Congress to bring forward an agreement and say, yes, we like it, or no, we don't, without picking every little line item apart. That's what TPA, or Trade Promotion Authority, allows our country to do. But when you look at the most significant opportunity in front of us today, The Trans-Pacific Partnership we look at as representing 40% of the global economy. So when we look at agriculture, and more specifically beef, we think it has a significant opportunity for continued growth in a lot of key markets around the world, especially Japan. And that's where Phil and I have worked hand in glove together with our role on the Ag Policy Advisory Committee to USDA and to USTR to make sure we're providing all those perspectives from the beef industry about what's important first to producers and then secondly to exporters, so that we can make sure we continue to grow that value that's there north of $300 a head, because it is substantial. We think it's significant, not just now, but in several years to come.
What do you see on the horizon, Phil?
Well, I think it's very positive on the horizon. I think when we look at beef trade, in general, it's gone up on every year for the last 25 years by 3 to 5%. When we look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership that Forrest referenced, you're looking at 65% of the world's middle class being in Asia over the course of the next 15 years. And as people have their wealth increase, they move from the cereals to the proteins. So if the U.S. beef industry is there, and that's what we're trying to do with this access and trying to get more meaningful access in these markets, I mean, the opportunities just there are immense. So very exciting when we look at the future.
Phil, Forrest,
it makes you want to wish you were a little younger to participate in some of this.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate all that you've done, because we are reaping the results of 40 years of effort on you and your team. Forrest gets to talk to NCBA members on a daily basis. You're out there promoting our product overseas. I'd like to give you an opportunity. What do you want our NCBA members to know about Meat Export Federation and about the importance of exports?
Well, I appreciate, number one, their commitment to the export market. I appreciate the checkoff dollars that have been devoted over the years, because market development is a long-term process. And so people have to stay the course. So the perseverance, and I think the attention to the international markets is very important, and I would hope that would continue, because when you look at the opportunities that are out there, it's immense as far as the opportunities for the U.S. beef industry internationally.
Thank you both for coming today, and more importantly for what you're doing to make U.S. beef so competitive on a global marketplace.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for being here.
Still ahead on this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll see how the market for U.S. beef in the Middle East is growing. And next, we'll meet the current chairman of the U.S. Meat Export Federation to see how producers and industry leaders help to guide the work of building global demand for U.S. beef. Don't go away. We'll have more right after this.
You're watching NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen on RFD TV.
It's deer season. Time to save big on a powerful John Deere 6M or 6R Series tractor. Choose any model from 105 to 155 horsepower and get up to $6,000 cash off. Or get 0% financing for 60 months and up to $1,000 off. From field to feedlot, you'll find the right fit in a new 6M or 6R Series tractor. Make your move today.
Well, I think a rancher has to be a steward of the land. There's nobody else that can take care of the land better than a rancher. When we switched over to the Purina products, it was a step in the right direction.
The difference we see in the cattle is the consistency of their nutrition.
The cattle hold their condition a lot better throughout the whole year.
It does make a difference that we can see, day in and day out.
Welcome back to this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, focusing on beef exports and the work of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. From her childhood spent on a Colorado ranch to years working to help consumers understand where food comes from, Leanne Saunders has a depth of experience in agriculture that sets her apart. Recently, Saunders became the chair of USMEF, and she says now is an exciting time of growth for U.S. proteins around the world. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter has more.
It's a lifetime passion for the meat industry that's led Leanne Saunders to the chairmanship of the U.S. Meat Export Federation.
I grew up in a commercial cow-calf operation. My family is still involved in ranching, so I've always understood the value of the export markets and what that value contributes to added dollars per head for my family's ranching operation.
After earning degrees at Colorado State University and spending time working in the agribusiness sector, Saunders and her husband began their own venture in agriculture. Today, the Saunders operate companies that handle everything from animal traceability to product claim verification to communicating to consumers where their food comes from. Saunders says producers see positive results from their investment in international marketing through the work of USMEF.
Even if you're just a producer that maybe doesn't have direct contact with actually what happens at the end of the day when the product is exported, what we're able to do with information from the USMEF is translate that into how much value in dollars per head on individual animals the U.S. Meat Export Federation provides. And today you're looking at $280 per head on a beef animal. The best thing, in my opinion, about USMEF is how hard all of the staff internationally are working every single day in the global markets, boots on the ground, really promoting our products in markets that we can't touch, we can't see, we can't feel, we don't speak the language, we don't understand. And they're just working on our behalf very hard every single day, promoting lamb, pork, and beef. So it's just exponential, the value that USMEF can give.
I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
And here to tell us more about her experiences in the global market is Leanne Saunders, the chairperson for the United States Meat Export Federation. Leanne, you've had a lot of experience in global markets, and I'd just be interested to know, why are you such a fan of all the work that the United States Meat Export Federation does around the globe?
Well, thank you, Kevin. It's great to be here with you today. When I first became a member of USMEF, it was over 20 years ago. And came up through different agribusinesses that I worked for, and understood with the first company how valuable USMEF services were to their business. They were an exporter. And so when you look at what they do, from developing the trade and the relationships in the market, and then bringing that market intelligence back to the trade, and then helping facilitate our great agriculture producers and being able to provide these high quality products to these markets around the world, it's really an organization like another. So for the past 20 years, I've been involved and felt very strongly that I wanted to support them as I could from a volunteer perspective.
Yeah, you're one of many volunteers that help USMEF. I'd be interested for our folks to know a little bit more about some of the sectors that are represented as part of your volunteer leadership.
So the uniqueness about the organization, it has a very diverse membership, and that really is the strength of the fabric of the organization. You have everyone from beef producers and pork producers and lamb producers to packers and processors to exporters and purveyors, all working in the chain, including feed grains, so corn producers and oilseeds producers that are members of this organization. So what's unique about the organization is all these different sectors come together for the good of promoting U.S. red meat export. So sometimes that's challenging, right? Because you might have a particular issue that within a certain segment might be looked at one way, and by another segment another. But as the collective, we're all better than the individual. So when we come together and we work together in the efforts of promoting the great products that we produce, it's all for good. So it's a unique organization, and the diverse leadership provides, I think, for a unique way to approach these markets today.
Let's talk about the professional staff for a minute. You've had a chance to travel to many places around the globe. Give us your perspective of the boots on the ground that USMEF has in so many of their, 18 offices now? That's
right, with 18 offices, and if you ever get a chance, I encourage you to do so, to visit these offices. You really understand firsthand the work that they do. So with the boots on the ground, first and foremost, when you go into a particular market, say it's an emerging market, you have to first develop the relationships and the trade, right? You have to bring that buyer and seller together to create business. USMEF, because they hire people in country that understand the culture and the relationships and the trade, can build those business relationships very quickly. And then when you start at that importer level and then work through that kind of quality marketing supply chain, and ultimately have the opportunity in markets such as Japan to reach the ultimate consumer, then at the end of the day, they're buying U.S. products as a Japanese consumer, for example, because we've had that long-term history and relationship with them, and they trust our products. And as you look at growing globally, that's really the opportunity for us for the future. You talk about long-term, and I understand that USMEF is nearing its 40th birthday this year. I understand that there is an initiative called Project 40. Can you tell us more about that? Yes, Project 40 is very exciting for us. Really, it's all about looking at the organization from an introspective perspective and saying, okay, what is it that we've done great for the last 40 years? Because if you think about where we started and where we are with exports today in the billions in these countries, it's unbelievable. So what we're doing is looking at ourselves internally and asking our membership and everybody that's part of the organization to say, okay, how do we continue to position this organization to be successful for the next 40 years? So it's an in-depth process, very exciting, all about continuing to be innovative and flexible in our marketing approaches to the global consumer.
When you were with us in San Antonio on the show, you announced some record numbers this last year. In fact, you've hit records the last couple of years. What's it going to take to keep this record growth going in beef exports?
So I think at the end of the day, what it takes is a continued commitment by every one of us in the supply chain and agriculture to global growth, meaning we have 96% of the world's population outside of our borders. So we have to continue to be nimble and flexible and look at ways to continue to grow our marketing efforts around the world and support organizations and businesses that are doing that, because that not only again builds a brighter future for the producers in this country, but allows us to bring back those dollars per head, because when you look at the value add that the export market plays, that's what's bringing back that $300 per head for each beef producer in the United States. And we just have to have continued support of those efforts and work together.
That's real money, and we're real appreciative.
Well, we're real appreciative of everybody in the supply chain that works hard every day on making these things happen. So thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Leanne. If you'd like to find out more about the work of the U.S. Meat Export Federation, you can check out their website at usmef.org, and you can also find resources and video replays on our website, cattlemen2cattlemen.org. Still ahead on this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll visit with the cowboy poet Baxter Black. And up next, we'll see how U.S. beef is gaining market share in the Middle East. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sure, cattle bring in the profits, but Case IH equipment helps you do everything else.
It's the official monthly publication of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. The National Cattleman is produced exclusively for NCBA members and includes coverage of the news and events affecting our industry. Every issue includes market analysis, feature stories, and practical management tips. Start receiving your copy of the National Cattleman. Call 866-USA-BEEF or go online to beefusa.org and join today.
Sure, cattle bring in the profits, but Case IH equipment helps you do everything else.
In terms of value, top export markets for U.S. beef last year were Japan, Mexico, and Hong Kong. But you might be surprised to learn that U.S. beef exports to the Middle East were valued at more than $274 million. We learn more about the Middle East market from Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Russell Nemitz.
The Middle East is a diverse market for U.S. beef with consumers at varying economic levels. For example, Egypt is the leading market for U.S. beef livers, and beef liver restaurants in Cairo are plentiful and often crowded. In the United Arab Emirates, a more affluent population is buying higher-end U.S. beef products in restaurants and supermarkets.
U.S. beef is very much appreciated in this market, and I don't think we've hit the tip of the iceberg for where the growth is finally going to end up.
They want a high quality product right now with the HRI sector, with a lot of the high-end hotels. We want to make sure we get into that, but we also want to make sure that we bring in maybe some of the lesser value cuts, the underutilized, that we can get this whole cross-section of the Middle East to be able to enjoy U.S. product.
Each year, the U.S. Meat Export Federation has a presence at the Gulf Food Show in Dubai, one of the largest food shows in the world. Here, U.S. MEF exhibits, makes connections, and assists U.S. beef exporters in presenting their product to Middle East importers and food buyers.
The U.S. MEF is an excellent support system for packers such as American Foods Group. We don't have an office here, so we need someone to give us good direction, good support, and be basically boots on the ground. It's a very valuable resource that the USMEF provides.
If they could come to one of these shows and see how this sells our U.S. beef, it's just a true eye-opener.
The Middle East nations together are now among the highest volume markets for U.S. beef and variety meats, and the trend appears likely to continue with growing populations and incomes in this region. I'm Russell Nimitz reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
And joining us now, fresh from a visit to the Gulf Food Show in Dubai, Dan Hallstrom, Senior Vice President of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Give folks an overview of the kind of work you and your team does here at the USMEF.
Well, I head up the global marketing, and it's a combination of marketing staff here in Denver, but more importantly, we have marketing staff in the 18 offices around the world. And these are people on the ground that speak the language, know the culture, and they're there watching the market every day. And I think it's really key about the value proposition, and I'll give you a couple of examples. You look at a market like Japan, one of the big items that goes into Japan are beef short plates, and the value in Japan is roughly $2.80 a pound. Yielded value back in the domestic market for trim would be closer to $1.60. So you're looking at $7 a head value, incremental value back to the beef producer from one product in one market. And it's not only primal cuts that are popular internationally, but it's also beef variety meats. And if you look at something like livers, beef livers, which are a very big item in Egypt as a very high source of protein, but very economical, it's worth about 53 cents a pound on beef livers into Egypt, and you're about 20 cents a pound here, $4 a head. So you get two products to two markets worth about $11 a head. And that's, in our mind, that's what it's really all about. We're matching up the demand in these countries with their unique food cuisines to our availability here to maximize value back to the producer.
You've mentioned a couple of different markets, and I'm always intrigued about the different activities and strategies you're utilizing in each one of those markets to drive demand for U.S. beef. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, we sold U.S. beef as an industry to over 100 countries last year, and MEF's actively involved in almost 80 of those. And really, it's about, we don't do anything the same in all markets. We're a little different approach in all markets depending on the situation. But there are some themes, some tactics that are similar in all. And one is relationship building. We're constantly out there talking about our industry with the consumers, with the trade, importers, distributors, retailers, food service, all the segments similar to the U.S., same sorts of segments in these markets. So relationship building is key, but probably the largest component is education. A lot of our global competitors, you got Australia, you got Brazil, you have India, Indian buffalo meat, which it's not comparing apples to apples. So we have to tell the story. And education, in terms of, hey, we have English breed cattle, grain-fed cattle, we have USDA grading, we have younger animals. These are all selling points that we know here, but we do not, we need to convey that message more effectively in a lot of these markets to sell the value. And our price is not the cheapest, nor do we want it to be the cheapest. Right. So you look at education, that's key. Another key component is, on the promotional side, is we have a lot of ad campaigns in these different markets. And I'll give you an example. Post-BSC, Korea was very volatile in terms of perception as it related to U.S. beef after BSC. We created a To Trust campaign, which is exactly as it sounds. We had to reinstore confidence in U.S. beef, and we did this through telling our story. The animal handling, the feeding, the practices, the quality involved, and the safety measures in place, and it's worked over time. So this is just another example of being in the market and trying to be effective to tell our story. Last but not least, another very, very common thing that we do is bringing buyer and seller together. And we have various events all over the world where we have that opportunity, but one of the most successful is we're 4 years running now doing a Latin American showcase in one of the emerging regions for U.S. beef. And last year was in Lima, Peru. We had 80 customers from 11 countries throughout the Central and South American region. And then we had roughly 35 exporting companies from the U.S. Two-day event. It was a huge success. So there's nothing more important than having the opportunity for our sellers to meet the buyers around the world, and we're very instrumental in that.
Well, speaking of food shows, you mentioned that you recently returned from Dubai and the Gulf Food Show. Tell folks a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, Dubai, located in the United Arab Emirates. It's one of the wealthiest areas in the Middle East. The Middle East in general is pretty wealthy, but this is one of the wealthiest areas. And this is a food show, a global food show, had about more than 80,000 visitors and more than 4,000 exhibitors. Huge opportunity for buyer and seller to meet over in the market. And it's not only Middle Eastern customers that are there, but we get customers from Europe, Russia, former Russian republics, and even Latin America and Africa, which is the newest emerging region. So it's exciting. This is sort of the tip of the iceberg, an area that we've been involved in, but one that's growing dramatically.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for everything you and your entire team does to grow demand for U.S. beef global. It makes a big, big difference to us producers.
Well, much appreciated, and thank you for having me.
Still ahead, we'll have more on the work of the U.S. Meat Export Federation and how beef exports drive value for cattle producers. Don't go away. We'll have more right after this.
New Holland is the undisputed leader in hay tools. We give farmers a wide range of innovative equipment that increases efficiency and productivity all year round. Because to us, smart means providing a smooth, clean cut with faster dry down, plug-free conditioning, and superior bale density. And smart means leaving less hay on the field to feed more livestock in less time. That's New Holland Smart. Visit your local New Holland dealer today.
Your herd, your business, your family. You've always protected what matters most, so you know how important vaccinations are for healthy cattle. And with Vista vaccines from Merck Animal Health, you know you're covered. No other vaccine works like Vista. Only Vista gives you complete dual-action pneumonia protection and complete one-dose fetal protection for the entire pregnancy. Protect what matters most. Talk to your veterinarian or animal health supplier about Vista.
Welcome back to Cattlemen to Cattlemen. We've been talking about the variety of ways and some of the countries where the U.S. Meat Export Federation works to build beef exports. Recently, we visited with some of the USMEF staff members who lead programs in Latin America and the Caribbean. Here's what they had to say about the opportunities for U.S. beef.
Well, the market for U.S. beef in the Caribbean is a good one because they are very interested in a variety of cuts. It's not like some markets where they're only interested in the short rib or they're only interested in chuck rolls. They take all types of cuts from the U.S. and they're very, very keen on making sure that those cuts are going to perform on the plate because most of our beef goes to high-end restaurants and hotels, and they want to make sure that their tourist that's sitting there eating there that night is having a great eating experience every time. And when we give them U.S. beef, that happens. They know it's going to be tender, juicy, and flavorful.
We have countries such as Costa Rica, for example, which is the high economic purchase power country in the region, and we have Nicaragua, which is one of the lowest one. So the opportunities that each of these countries that they offer for the U.S. beef is tremendously. And there's different products, different channels, different market opportunities. So as well in the Dominican Republic, as an example, just to give an example, we have an increase in 69% growth 2014 compared to 2013. We have countries such as Guatemala, they have a 61% growth. Panama. So each of these countries, they grow, but in a different way because they grow with different products, different needs.
Well, the biggest challenge right now, I would say, is price. The U.S. cattle herd is the lowest levels it's been since 1951. There's a rebuilding of the herd process underway. It's kind of in a nascent stage at this point. Prices are historically high. And most analysts, including the one at USMEF, has told us that we should probably expect even higher prices this year and perhaps even into 2016. And Mexico, although it's a wealthy country, there is limitations to what they can afford, particularly the average middle-class Mexican consumer. So price is a big issue, and it's a difficult one to overcome sometime. But in spite of that headwind, Last year, 2014, we're up 14%. Mexicans love beef. They have a lot of trust in the U.S. Production and safety systems and the quality of U.S. beef. Many of them have eaten U.S. beef for years and travel to the States and enjoy the product here as well. So there's a great affinity and appreciation for the product.
The key to growing any of these markets is first gaining access for U.S. beef by reducing tariffs and other trade barriers. Joining me to talk about some of those issues is Thad Lively, Senior Vice President of Trade Access for U.S. Meat Export Federation. Thad, tell folks a little bit about the overall mission and purpose of your team here at USMEF.
Well, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, our team is really primarily focused on, as you say, what we call market access. Right. And that's really getting into markets and staying in markets. And bottom line, this is something that we in the industry don't do. This is really something the U.S. government does. But we have a role, and USMEF has a role, and our partner organizations, whether it's NCBA or the North American Meat Institute, we all work together on these things. But the bottom line of what we're trying to accomplish here is to provide input into that process from the markets. Because of course we have offices around the world, we have colleagues working in all the major export markets out there, and we, from that presence on the ground in the market, we're able to collect intelligence, analyze that, see what our competitors are doing, and put all that information together and feed it into this process back here in the U.S.
You mentioned some of the partner organizations, and we talk a lot at NCBA about what they're doing from trade access. Tell folks how you work collaboratively with the NCBA team.
Well, that's a very important point, because on our own at USMEF, of course, we're not a policy organization. That's not what we do here, but they are. And so we rely very heavily on them through their office in D.C. to represent the interests of the industry. And they work in turn very closely with the North American Meat Institute, which is of course the trade association for the meat packers, to try to come together and have a common industry position. Because if they want to go in and talk to our government about this is what we'd like to accomplish in this market or that market, it's very important that all of the elements of the industry are together and singing from the same song sheet.
Help our viewers understand a little bit, Thad, about the role market access plays in the overall picture of beef exports. Why is that so important? It seems very, very complex sometimes from a producer standpoint.
Well, and a lot of these issues do get very complex and very technical. Yeah. In many cases, the problems we face in export markets are very technically oriented. But fundamentally, what we're typically looking at is countries that are trying to protect their own industries at home. So when we can get markets open, when we can keep markets open, when we can go back and remove some of these technical barriers, basically what it does is that it opens up new customers for our product. Mm-hmm. When you got new customers, you got more people bidding on that beef, obviously we're going to see an increase in price, and that works its way back down the chain to the cattlemen and to the producers. That's what this is all about. We currently export something like 12–13% of our production. We'd like to see that grow. There's huge demand for U.S. beef, as I'm sure everyone watching this show knows, outside the United States. Right. And so to take advantage of those opportunities, we're going to have access to those markets.
So if you'd select one or two issues or opportunities that you think our viewers should know about, what would those be, Thad?
Well, you might have heard about something called the Trans-Pacific Partnership Negotiation. This is a big, very ambitious negotiation that the United States is in with 11 other countries in the Pacific Rim. What will happen as a result of that, when that agreement actually gets done, is it'll improve our access to all those markets, but most importantly to Japan, because Japan's the other big economy in that group of 12. And today we face very high tariffs in Japan, very restrictive tariffs. We're still able to do a very good business, of course, in Japan, but we think as those tariffs come down as a result of this negotiation, that will increase our opportunities in that important Japanese market. There's a similar negotiation that has been launched with Europe. It's called TTIP. And again, the goal there is to remove some of those access barriers, as we call them, whether they're tariffs or some of these technical things we talked about, and give us access to that market. If between these two trade agreements, we're going to accomplish something that's never been seen before. So this is a huge undertaking, but in the end, it has the real potential to set the direction for trade and beef for generations to come.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all the work you and your team does. It seems very, very complex to me, and I'm certainly glad we've got folks like you that keep on top of that.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your support.
If you'd like to keep up to date on all that's happening in the beef industry, from trade to policy debates on Capitol Hill, why not become an NCBA member? It's easy to do, and there are valuable benefits available to members. Sign up today by calling 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit the website beefusa.org. Still ahead, we'll have wit and wisdom from Baxter Black. And coming up next, we'll learn more about some of the technical challenges in exporting U.S. beef. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is yours, and so is what grows there. Not theirs or theirs, yours. You need this to fight this and this to grow more this. Because the more of this you feed them, the less this you spend on that, which leaves more of this here. Don't let them take this from you. Chaparral takes care of weeds and brush, and that's that.
Every truck can tow a boat. Every truck can climb a hill. Every truck can haul a trailer. But not everyone can say they're the fastest growing truck brand in America. Guts, glory, Ram.
Welcome back. One of the intriguing things about marketing U.S. beef worldwide is that each country has different cuisines, different cuts they prefer, and different technical challenges that must be overcome to be competitive in that marketplace. With me now to talk about some of those technical challenges, Paul Clayton. He's the Senior Vice President of Export Services for the United States Meat Export Federation. Paul, tell folks a little bit about the Technical Services Department and some of the challenges you work through for the U.S. beef industry.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, we have several challenges that we have to work through on a daily basis, and myself and my staff, probably one of the primary things that we do is look at the import requirements that a country may have. And from there, we'll share those with the rest of the industry, and we'll try to determine if that's going to be a challenge or not. And then that may end up, once we move that to USDA and USTR, will they have to negotiate something? Okay. That isn't always the case. That may change from, or that may be different from country to country. The next thing that would happen then is it will get it in a form that we can give it to the exporters so that they can start using that. Sometimes that may include some production things that cattlemen may have to do. But in most cases, it's usually with the exporters. USDA, Food Safety Inspection Service, will put that out into what we call the export library, which is the list of all of these requirements. Sometimes those can be a little bit hard to understand, so we'll do some things to help the exporters understand what that is. Our website even has some guidance documents that kind of explains how they might use some of those things. But ultimately, it just helps those individuals understand what they need to do. Some of the challenges that may happen, for instance, in this most recent situation we had on the West Coast with the ports not being totally open, we had to ask USDA if there would be some modifications maybe in some of the documentation so that products could flow through a little bit easier, and then they worked with the foreign governments to see if they were okay with that. So it's a very dynamic and changing situation almost on a daily basis.
So help me understand how your team works with and collaborates with NCBA on some of these issues.
Well, with quite a few things we do. We are members of the Beef Innovations Group, so we work and try to find products that will work in the marketplace, whether it be here or overseas. But obviously, if we make a change with some product here in the U.S., that may make an advantage for us, or a product that we can use in the foreign market. So we collaborate a lot of those things. We're also members of BIFSCO, so food safety being such an important part of the industry, we make sure that that is something that we tell the foreign markets about. But there's a lot of other programs and things that NCBA does that we capture and use that information. A lot of that may be on the website. But we also trade back and forth. I just recently was on the Cattlemen's College and kind of explained the use of variety meats and how those are used in the various markets.
Tell folks a little bit about why you think U.S. Meat Export Federation is so important. What's one thing you would want folks to know about USMEF?
Well, one of the things I think that Cattlemen would like to understand is that just how much value the foreign markets are. And it isn't like we sell full carcasses in the foreign markets. It's incremental. We sell pieces. And one of the key things is that we try to add value to those pieces. One of the biggest things are variety meats and offals. Those are items that are not going to be consumed in the United States. So we're able to find a home from them that may have more value. For example, a liver here in the United States might be worth 20 cents a pound. But even though we take it to maybe a developing country such as Egypt, it's worth 60 cents a pound. Or maybe even more classical items that aren't necessarily in high demand here, but we can create demand for them in a foreign market. Things like short ribs and short plates. Golly, some of their values may up be in the $5 and $6 things. So ultimately, we might create about $300 in value per head just in the international markets alone.
And that's a historic value you're adding to all of our bottom lines. We appreciate it.
Yep. Don't
forget to learn more about the work of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. You should check out their website. That's usmef.org. And to see video replays of our stories, just visit our website at cattlemen2cattlemen.org. Don't go away. We'll have more of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen right after this.
Hi there, I'm Joey.
And I'm Rory, and welcome to our farm outside Nashville, Tennessee. When we go to work, whether it's on tour or here at home, we wear the West.
That's right. Whether it's that perfect snap shirt or that perfect pair of boots, when you wear Roper, you wear the West.
Learn more about us, Joey and Rory, and about Roper Western Wear at eroper.com.
Telling the truth and being real and feeding my family a home-cooked meal. That's important to me. That's important to me. And planting the garden and watching it grow.
Let's face it, you don't think a lot about your trailer hitch. You use it and forget it. We understand. But at B&W, we think about it. Short nights, the long hauls, the never-ending chores, the unthinkable. We think about it all, so you don't have to. B&W. Trusted.
If you're not using IMI Global's verification programs, you might as well set your money on fire. To give your wieners added value, no program begins without a traceable animal. Then add on BQA and other specialties and you open up a whole new market for your calves. You might be thinking, the market's so good, why bother? You ever heard of making hay when the sun shines? You got a choice. Get in the game or visit IMIGlobal.com.
I was watching Will trying to push a bunch of cows into the crowding pen and down the alley. They kept balking, and finally the whole bunch just turned back and ran right over the top of him. It's frustrating, he said. My dad told me one time, cows are stupid. That's why we eat them. Well, I thought that was philosophical genius. One of those moments when a person sees there really is a master plan in the universe. However, I hear story after story about men trying to outsmart cows. Temple Grandin has built a fine reputation defining and manipulating cow behavior. But her techniques do not depend on a cow's intelligence. The design of her cattle handling facilities could also be used in bottling plants or air conditioning ducts or irrigation systems. It's all about flow. On the open range, once a cow finds a water hole, they can find it again even if there's no trail. It's almost like they have their own GPS, like the geese do, to guide them. Witness their ability to hide their calf, walk 1.5 miles to water, and then return to the calf's hiding place. Is that instinct or intelligence? Is it stupidity when you try and run a range bull through a chute 3 days in a row and he resists? Is it stupidity when you get a roping steer that ducks his head so you can't catch him? And how about an old cow that sticks her nose in the ground at her annual fall mouthing? Is she really thinking, I don't want Farmer Bill to see I've got a loose tooth? Maybe stupid is too harsh a word. We could say learning handicapped or SAT negative, IQ diminished, thinking deprived, thick-headed, or brain dead. And stupid compared to what? A creosote post, a box of gravel, a tamping bar? To be fair to the cow, we must look at the company she keeps. Other cows. And of course, cowboys, who aren't stupid, but sometimes you just can't tell. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Thanks, Baxter. We always appreciate your stories and your insight. And we'll be right back.
Don't miss the 2015 NCBA Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C. It's your opportunity to meet with key congressional and federal agency influencers and to let them know where cattlemen and women stand on critical issues that impact the cattle business and our way of life. Make plans to be in Washington, D.C. March 24th to the 26th for the 2015 NCBA Legislative Conference. Together, we can do more. Details at beefusa.org.
Hello, I'm Kevin Ochsner, host of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Each week, we travel the country to bring you the latest cattle industry news and information. Check us out at cattlementocattlemen.org or on Facebook and Twitter. That's our time for this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks to our friends here at the U.S. Meat Export Federation for hosting us this week and for their outstanding work they do around the world every day growing U.S. beef exports. And thanks to you for watching NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. So long. We'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.